Hi, I'm Francisco Campoy, and this is Just for Funk. Welcome to episode number 32 of Just for Funk. Today we're going to modify the previous code, that command line tool that we developed to manage tasks, to use Cobra. Lots of people asked about this, so since I like to please, I decided to go with that. So what we're gonna do is get the code that we had before and just let it there. I'm gonna create a new directory that is going to be using, again, the gRPC client that we used before. And if you don't know what that is, do not worry, it just looks like calling a function from here, so that's fine. But if you wanna know more, you should watch the episode from 2 weeks ago. And then what we're gonna do is just provide a more organized way of organizing your source code. And Cobra is really good for that. It forces you to follow some structure, which is sometimes, if you really don't want to follow it, can be a little bit painful. But when you're not constrained and you can do whatever you want, Cobra is a great project to write small tools and even large ones. Docker or Kubernetes, all of, like, if you do kubectl, that command line, some people pronounce it kubectl, which is wrong. But if you run kubectl, you will see that that is actually using Cobra too. So you're gonna get to learn how to use the thing that Docker and Kubernetes and all of these cool kids use. So does that sound fun? Let's get started. So let's talk first a little bit about Cobra. Cobra is, according to the documentation, which you can find on GitHub, and there will be a link in the description, so go check it out. According to the documentation from Cobra, is both a library for creating powerful modern CLI applications as well as a program to generate applications and command files, which is an interesting description. It's pretty accurate. The only thing that I care about is the fact that it uses two different factors, right? Just like two different things. According to this, a library and also a program. I prefer to call them like a program or a tool, sure, whatever, a binary that you're going to be running. And also you're going to have a framework. It's more of a framework than a library, I'd say, just because basically when you call the binary, that will create a skeleton, and then you're going to be adding code in between, which is more what you do with a framework than a library. But you know, the line is somehow blurred around those edges. So let's say it's a library or a framework, whatever word you prefer. I'll call it framework. There's two things. In order to install it, is as simple as doing go get, because it's a Go program. So of course it's go gettable. Steve is a good gopher, so of course he does the programs go gettable. The cool thing is that while we're going to be using it for a very small example, just a to-do app with just a couple of subcommands, some other large tools use it. So here we have a list of Kubernetes and Hugo, but also Docker. What else? CockerDB and Gopher.js and some others that you may know. The cool thing is that this is actually a very simple way to get started and to write nice tools. Forces you to keep your code quite clean. So it's a good option. Is it better than writing everything by yourself? I'd say that yes, it is, because most of the time when you're running a command line, there's more interesting things than figuring out how to organize your code or how to parse flags. And that's what Cobra does for you. So that's enough description. Let's get started and let's get using it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is to run Cobra init. And when you do Cobra init, it's going to initialize the project, create all the basic skeleton where you're going to be at when you're going to be adding your code. When you do that, it will create a main.go, the entry point for the program. And it will create it exactly where you are when you run Cobra init, which is not what I want here, because then I will get a binary named 32-Cobra, which is not necessarily a very good name. So instead, I'm going to create a new directory, go inside of it, and then do Cobra init. Now your core application is ready. Cool. And you can run it. So you can do simply go run main.go, and look at this. It actually runs and it shows things. That's cool. We didn't do much, and already we got all of this, right? So you create a main.go license and a root.go inside of the command directory. The main.go function doesn't do much. And that's a feature. Everything it does, it just calls the execute, so execute function in the command package. And the command package is defined here. There's only one file so far, root.go, and it contains the root command. And the way it works is that basically a command can have as many subcommands as you want. And those subcommands can have subcommands at its own time, right? So it is kind of cool. There's a lot of things that the root command does. It manages, for instance, all the part of configuration and stuff like that. In this episode, to keep it short, I will not be talking about configuration, at least not today, not right now. So I'm just going to ignore all of this code. I will leave it there. But basically, it's a nice way of, if you want to add things like an environment variable to decide where the database is stored or whatever, things like this, it's a nice way to do it. We'll not talk about that today. If you want me to talk about it another day, you know what to do. Leave a comment, send me an email, send me a message on Twitter, whatever. You know how to reach me. Anyway, the important thing is that execute, that function that we're calling from the main function, calls the execute method of the root command. And root command is a global variable, that a package variable, if you wish, that is of type pointer to Cobra command. So what it has is the use, which is the name of the command itself, is the root. We're going to call it just to do. A description of what this does. So to do is, let's call it a blockchain powered to do manager, task manager. Now, of course, this is false, but most of the people that say they're working on blockchain, they're also lying, so who cares? So now we can add a longer description. To do is the most awesome project you'll ever see. And just to show, and you can say that in multiple lines. Yay. Okay, then if we want the root to do something, then we can add things. We can add this run function. It is not the case. When we do to do, it should not do anything. It should ask you what do you want to do, right? So we're just going to leave it like this. You can ignore everything down here. Just ignore it. Everything we're doing is calling execute in the root command. Cool. So when I do go install, that generates a to-do binary. And now when I run it, it says to do is the most awesome project you'll ever see, .append. Because apparently this decided that append was supposed to be added at the end there. Sure. Let's go install and to do. Okay, and you can say that in multiple lines. Yay. So that's pretty useful. That's pretty much what we want to do. Now, this is cool, but what about we want to add more commands? So you could write all of the code for you, but that kind of defeats the purpose of Cobra. With Cobra, what you can do is simply do Cobra Add. And you can do Cobra help add to show you all the things that you can do. But add Cobra Add will create a new command with a license and the appropriate structure for a Cobra-based CLI application and register it to its parent default command, root command. So when you do, so let's say that you want to list all of the tasks, right? So we're gonna call it list. So what you can do is Cobra Add and then the name of the command, list. Now when I do this, without modifying anything else, if I do go install and run to do again, you will see that now we have extra things. And this starts to get interesting because all of a sudden it says the description that we gave before, sure, but also the usage, it's to do and a command. Those the command can either be help or list. And then there's some flags, -t for toggle, which is help message for toggle, and help for to do. Those flags are defined here, and we don't really care about them that much. So I'm just going to comment this out too. Why not? So I'm going to comment this. You know what? I'm going to delete all that. That way it's less confusing. There's none of that code matters. we just have a root command. And now when we did Cobra Add, you will see that there's a new list. This list command also comes with a description. So lists all of the tasks. And I'm not going to provide a long description. So when you run it, if it needs a long description, it will just get the short one, which is good. And then what we're going to do here is just print list called. Now, the interesting thing is this part here. Root command is the command that we defined before. And we're calling add command and adding a new command, right? So this is what is building that tree of command, subcommand, 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 etc. That's that function call right there that we do at init. We might do some flags later, but for now, let's just remove all of this. Okay, so right now, as you can see, everything we have is we just define the list command. We say that whenever we call it, it's going to do list called, and we add it to the root command in the init function. So let's go install, and then to do what? To do list, and to do list says to do list called. Cool. What about to do help? It prints the same thing as before, but you can also do to do help list. And it prints the help specifically for the list subcommand, which is really cool. This is where if you have provided a long description, it would appear instead of the short one, which is pretty nice. And also the specific flag for this command, which there's nothing. So there's just -h. Cool. Let's leave it as is for now and add just a couple more commands. So we're going to do Cobra Add. So we have list. We want to have a new one for new and one for creating it. And new created. So now again, I'm not gonna change anything, and just to do, and now get help list and new. This is really cool. So now let's go and modify that new.go. So creates a new task with the given text. Going to drop all of this and new call, and then I'm going to drop all of this too. So again, we're just going to the bare minimum. So go install, to do. So help about any command, list all of the tasks. I don't like that this one doesn't have a dot at the end and the others do. So let's fix that. This is the kind of thing that, you know, I've been very code reviewed in the past. So that's why I pay attention to little things like that. Okay, so go install, to do help list, and to do help new. And all of this is just there without having to really create much. So that's cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now migrate the code that we had before for episode 31, the one talking about gRPC, and migrate that into this new program. So without thinking too much about it, I'm just going to copy paste the code. So this is the part, right? The add and list, which do the things we want to do. The rest is all about deciding the parsing flags, connecting to stuff and things like this, which we don't really care about that much because we're using Cobra and it will manage it by itself. So let's start with list and simply move that to list.go. So I'm going to add it here at the end. And what we want to do is call this. So list context, context.background. Let's pass in a client. We're gonna need also a client. A client can be created with this. Okay, so we pass the client, and that returns an error. So what we want to do is really return that error. But when you return an error here, these will not be happy because we never saw that we were returning errors. And by the way, here I'd like to instead return an error here too. Okay. So we need this to return an error. But of course, now this is not happy because run is supposed to be a function that doesn't return an error. Luckily for us, there's run e. That is exactly a function that does the same thing, but just handles the error return, which is pretty cool. gRPC is not defined. That's a problem. Also, we're gonna need that to do package there. Okay, so now all of this is pretty happy. So let's go here. Okay, so I'm going to start running the server that we used the last time, exactly the same. So I'm going to do go install of command server and then run server, and that should listen on something. I do not remember what port. 8888. Many eights. Ba 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 ba. I'm learning Chinese. Okay, so that's running, and that. So if we do go install, and we do to do list, there you go. We got them. That's awesome, right? Now we're able to see the list that we had before. What about add? So we're gonna do something similar. Go to the client and get add. And so simply add it to add. So to new. So add client.add to do text, text. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. We just need a client again. So that's gonna be the same code as in here. We're gonna move it here. That's gonna return an error. It's gonna be run E. And we're going to call add of context.background. What else? The client and the text. And the text is the result of concatenating all of the arguments we're passing. So that's going to be strings.join args with a space. Okay, will this work? Let's try it. So go install. To do list. To do new edit justforfunc. Task added successfully to the list. Cool, we have it right there. Perfect. Okay, one last thing that I'm not very happy with is, for instance, the fact that here we're repeating this piece of code over and over. Something that I think might be nicer to do is to do it at init on root. So when we do root here, when we do init, since this was not doing anything else anymore, we can do this thing, client, and have a variable client, which is to do dot client, and need tasks client. And if that fails, then we're gonna do we're gonna go back to what we had before, rf oscdr and os exit of 1. So this is what we had before. fprintf. Okay, and client, it's a to do, cannot use task client. Okay, this is not a pointer, this is an interface. I keep on forgetting that every single time. Okay, but now we know that if we getting here at all, we know it is because we have a client. So we do not need to pass this client anymore. Instead, that client will be the global variable. So list, we're gonna do the same. We're gonna just remove all of this. And we're not going to pass the client anymore. We're not going to pass the client here. Whoa. Instead, we're just going to use it directly. So let's see if that works. So go install, and then to do list, and to do add Sleep a little bit, maybe. A little bit, maybe. To do new. Oh, and now if we do to-do list, sleep a little bit, maybe. Perfect. So all of this appears and it's pretty nice. At some point, we should add the fact that we can do a task. Right now, we're just adding more and more tasks, and we never delete them and we never finish them, which is, accurate at this point of my life, but not necessarily what we want to do with a task manager. So to finish, let's add a flag just to show you how it works. And we're going to add a flag to specific subcommand. So in this case, let's think we can do it with list. Let's say that we want to filter the tasks that are already done. In our case, we don't have any done tasks, so that is kind of a silly test, but why not? So how do we do that? Well, we are going to go back here, and when we're doing the root command.add, we can also do before that. I like it before list command dot flags dot add flag. So bool p bool slice bool p, and that will give a name. So I'm not very good with long names. Done only. D. The value is going to be false by default, and these will do show only tasks that are to do only. Okay. D, show only tasks that are not completed yet. Okay, so by just doing this, now what we can do is go here, and let's say that we're going to pass that as a variable here. Filter done, which is Boolean, and we're gonna say that if it's done, if filter done is true, then we're going to continue. We're just gonna go to the next task. So that should work. Yeah, that should work. And now what value do we pass there? Well, we're simply going to do command flags get bool to do only, and that actually returns an error too. So let's move it here. So filter done and error. If the error is not nil, we're gonna return the error. Otherwise, we're going to pass filter done. Okay, so let's see if this did anything interesting. So when I do go install again, if I do to do, this doesn't show any extra flags here, but that's normal because the flag was not added to the root command or to, it's not a persistent flag that you can use everywhere. It's a flag specifically for a subcommand. So if we do to do list, this lists all of tasks, but if we do to do help list, now you can see that there's a new flag, and this new flag has two forms. -t, so to do -t list, to do list -t, sorry, and or -- to do only, and they're both exactly the same. And this is how Linux commands really work, right? Like you have either one dash and one letter, or two dashes and something longer. So for instance, with git here, you have -p or -- paginate. They're both exactly the same thing, right? What is the difference? Well, one is shorter, the other one's longer. So when you do to do help of list, you see that you have -h or -- help and -t or -- to do only, which is very cool. So with that, I think that we've basically shown the basics of Cobra, how to add commands, how to share information across multiple commands, basically move it to root and pass parameters, and also how to figure out how to use flags. We've seen both flags that were at the root level, which is that toggle that we had before, and that was a persistent flag, so you can use it anywhere. But also you can define flags at a command level, and you do that directly from list command, and then you do command flag get bool, and that's pretty much it. So with this, we got to the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. But before you go, I wanted to remind you of a couple things. One of them is thanks to all the people that are donating on Patreon, I'm able to increase a little bit the quality of videos since I left Google. My budget is different, as you can imagine. So talking about cheap budget, this like super cheap mirror, but I hope that you'll be able to see, and I'm gonna try to do some video editing there. So in here you can see the two big lights that I got, which make me look much better, I think. So thanks so much to all of you. I'm still recording with a phone. Soon I'll try to get a camera, but that's next. Also, I wanted to remind you that you can give me all the proposals or send me DAOs or whatever that you might want to do on forum.justforfunc.com. Also, I read all of the comments down here on YouTube, the good ones and the bad ones. So, I'll read them. So leave a comment if you want to tell me anything. Also, you can find me on Twitter as Francesc. And last but not least, I wanted to leave you with a question. So we've learned how to do CLI tools. Cool. But what does the I stand for in CLI? Right? So with that enigmatic question, this is the end of the episode. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, tell all of your friends, and see you all in 2 weeks.